how much layer of trauma's there, like self-worth issue is there, insecurity and anxiety is there. How much is it just like, I'm birthing a creative project and I just need some support around the strategy and framework of how to move that through. It really like depends on where the person is and how the sessions are structured as a result. But, it's going to be X number of time based on what we're working on. And again, based on, like the amount of kind of coaching, advising, mentoring, teaching versus strategy versus healing energy sessions. It all kind of depends on where you're at. And then we would structure that like X number of times a month we're going to meet, and here's how we're going to do this, and here's the journey and the process, the methodology we're going to work through as a result. And so it varies.
Got you.
So a lot of these sessions involve sitting down and talking, basically.
Yeah, they're sitting.
Which is the best way to resolve most things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of sitting and talking, and then there's work in between. And then sometimes you're just laying there and receiving like some energy work,
Okay.
So yeah, exactly. Maybe you're sending me something, you could be sending me music, and we're going back and forth and listening, and we're talking about that, and it depends.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you begin working with Alicia Keys? I don't know her.
Yeah, we knew each other since we met when we were 4, at a mutual friend's party, Halloween party. Very soiree, actually.
Wow.
No, but she lived in this building in New York City. It was an artist building, and my uncle lived in that building, and her mom and my uncle were close, and then she was close with my older cousins, and then they were in like a girl group when Alicia was 9, and my cousins were like older than us, like 15, 16 or something like that. And so we just grew up around each other. Like I thought, I have a big family. I thought we were cousins for the longest. And then I found out we weren't, but, so we were just around each other. And, what had happened was I always wanted to be an artist. I always wanted to sing and dance and all that stuff. But my dad was like, nah, that's not your path. That's not for you. I don't want you in that business. Because his brother, the one who lived in the building, was a musician and sort of struggled, and he saw him go through it and heard his stories, and he was just like, no, not my baby.
Yeah.
So when we were like 16, though, my uncle knew. My uncle knew, and he was my mentor, and he really like stuck up for me with my dad, his brother, and was like, no, you have to let her do this. And I hadn't told Alicia about it because what happened was she got a record deal. And like, I was both like super excited for her, but also like, I didn't want to tell her that I wanted to sing too, because I thought she was going to be like, oh, you just want to sing because I want to sing. And that's not even like her way. But I was I was super insecure about it. Like, she's just gonna think, and I'm like, oh, me too. I want a record deal. So I didn't say. And one day, like, my uncle called me up. He's like, hey, Erica. I'm like, hey. He's like, I got Alicia and Crucial here. And Crucial was her partner at the time. And I was like, oh, hey, y'all, what's up? Da, da, da. And he was like, Alicia. She's like, yeah. He's like, Erica sings. And she was like, what? What do you mean? What are you talking about? He's like, no, she like sings and like she wants to sing. She's like, how have you never told me this? She's like, when can you get here? So on my next like school break, I came to New York, and they had this little spot in Harlem, this little studio, and we just recorded. And it was like, boom, they were building this Crucial Keys concept, and it was a production family, and da 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 da. And so it was like, let's do this. It's Crucial Keys. And so we started just writing and making music together. And it was like maybe like a crew of like 5 or 6 of us. And that was going on. And so we did that for years. And it was like Alicia, because she had the deal already, so she was going to come out, and then we were all working on our own demos and also working on the first album. And so then we were going to each like strategically, submit our own demos and get our own deals and come out. We would be the crew, ba ba ba.
Yeah.
And then she came out, and we've been working on this. I mean, we had moved multiple labels at this point. By the time the album came out, we'd been through 3 different labels, and
wow.
And then it just was like, it went from 0 to like a gazillion, what seemed like overnight, but we had been working on for years. And it was just like, hey, can you come on the road with me for a few weeks? Because, one of our other friends was supposed to go as her assistant. And I was like, yeah, sure, that'd be cool. Because I was working on my demo and everything. And then 3 weeks turned into 6 weeks, and the road manager left. And I was like, oh, I could do that gig. And then I became the road manager. And then her manager was like, you should be my day-to-day person. So like all of a sudden I went from working on my demo to being like management.
Okay. Big
And
shift.
that was that. That was that.
Okay.
So how long was the process before, like while you guys were shopping the deal, to actually becoming the phenomenon that was her debut album?
Well, she'd been working diligently and hard for many, many years. So, and I wasn't a part of shopping the deal at the time. I was a teenager, but her and Jeff and, her publisher, Jody Gerson, and her A&R, Peter Edge, like it was, they were the ones who, if she signed at 16, the album, I don't know, it was 15, we were 15 or 16, and then the album came out when we were 20. So it was a 5-year process.
Right. Gotcha.
Wow.
Yep.
Was there ever a moment where you were like, I don't know if it's going to actually happen?
Never.
Or did she ever feel
Never.
that? Or you guys were just, it's a matter of time? Because
There was just there was no,
undeniable.
we were in. We had a record deal. Do you know what I mean? It was just like.
She was already writing for other artists too, right? At that time.
There was some of that going on, but it was just like she, when you saw her do her thing behind a piano live, it was just, you hadn't seen anything like that. There was no doubt.
Undeniable.
There was no doubt.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. It just, we just had to like
the it
eat
factor.
shit for a minute. That's all. It was worth it.
Yeah. And then, I mean, that from road manager, that journey continued for a number of years.
Yep.
And you're, still growing up at that time. So
Yes.
you've done a lot of things. You've worn a lot of hats.
Yeah.
How much of that experience came directly from the work? 'Cause I know that I'm sure your roles changed over the years from road manager.
Yeah, all of
to
it.
where
I mean,
you
I literally,
ended up.
I played every possible role you could imagine. And it was cool because nobody knew what we were doing, not even her manager, quite frankly. You know what I'm saying? Like, he never managed somebody at this scale. So he wasn't like, okay, here's how you manage, here's what you do. It was just like, you're going to figure it out, So it was a very fake it till you make it type of thing. And, I was responsible in managing, we were touring, and people were, the sound guy was like 50 and I was 20. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
And so they were like, in my little like Juicy Couture jumpsuit, people were just like, really? Aw, you're so cute. So I had to like, I remember going to the production office and they'd be like, fuck, da 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 da. So I was like, okay, fuck. I gotta say fuck more. Noted. I was just like, figured it out as I went. But because I grew up in a really business minded home, my parents were successful entrepreneurs. I was comfortable in business, but I was also like, but I'm supposed to be an artist. Why am I doing all this?
Yeah.
But I was good at it. And again, I got to learn from the ground up. Sometimes we would go to like a club gig and like, I would be standing there like security, what, you can't come in, you know what I mean? Or I'd be like a publicist or whatever. So it was cool because, I learned all the jobs on the way kind of like up, and we grew together as a team through the years. And so it was really cool to be able to see it from all those different angles. And luckily also the great thing about Alicia was that you know, like she's still with Peter Edge, who was her A&R when she was 14 years old. Peter is now the CEO of the label. So it's just like so many of the relationships, you know, we've grown up with these people. And so we have most of the relationships around her. People have changed, of course, but there's a good handful of like long-term relationships, which is really rare. And I would say that's also kind of what sets like Alicia, like what put her in a good standing, because I think a lot of artists who really do struggle with some darkness, like they don't have good support around them. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's like one of the most critical things I think for any artist in this business. Like you need some real solid people around you to help you. Like her mom is like no joke. She'd be like, what? You know what I mean? You better check. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't mess with Terry. You know what I'm saying? Like type of thing. And she and I were, you know, she and I were super tight, and I always kept it 100. Like I'm not known for not keeping it 100. So it's like she had the right mix of people around her, and a lot of people don't have that. It's like, yeah, totally. Oh, that's such a good idea. You should definitely drive your car off a cliff. That's gonna be epic. You know what I mean? So it's like if you have people like that around you, just yesing you and not willing to tell you the truth, you're in for it. You're in for a tough ride.
Wise words.
Yeah.
What are some of the bigger challenges that you came across, especially in those early days entering the music industry?
I think it was just in the early days, it was just like learning the game. You know what I mean? We just didn't really know what we were dealing with. And it, you know, like anywhere, there's like understanding the politics. You know, what is the game I'm playing? You know what I mean? You know, you don't know the rules of the game until you get into it. And the industry is a game indeed.
A lot of you are familiar with the DNA Project and have been rocking with us for a while, but some of you aren't. A lot of you are faithful listeners of the podcast, but aren't familiar with some of the other work that we do. So I just want to take a quick moment to explain to you a little bit more of what we do. So you're getting married, or you have a friend, a cousin, a sister, somebody you know is getting married. Okay. You've booked your venue, caterers, photographer, all that good stuff. When it comes to live music, most people have no idea where to look. We have you covered. Picture this. During the ceremony, while guests are being seated, or while the bride's walking down the aisle. During the cocktail hour, while guests are just mingling and having a good time. Don't forget about dinner music. That's very important to set the mood while guests eat. And we definitely can't forget the party. Let's get the party started right now with the DNA Project. www.thednaproject.ca for more information.